From LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook to Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and the untold story of Silicon Valley. The story of the PayPal Mafia. In the late 1990s, Silicon Valley was a place of wild optimism and even wilder speculation. The internet had captured the imagination of entrepreneurs and investors alike. Money was pouring into anything with a .com attached to its name. But amidst this frenzy, something remarkable was taking shape in a modest office in Palo Alto, California. It was not just another internet company destined to fade into obscurity after the inevitable crash. It was the breeding ground for what would become one of the most influential networks in the history of technology and business. This is the story of the PayPal Mafia. Not an actual criminal organization, but a group of brilliant, ambitious, and often stubborn individuals who came together to solve a problem that seemed almost trivial at the time. How do you send money over the internet? The answer they found would not only transform online commerce but would also set these individuals on paths that would reshape entire industries. From electric cars to social networking, from space exploration to artificial intelligence, the fingerprints of the PayPal Mafia are everywhere in our modern world. The story begins in December 1998. Max Levchin, a young Ukrainian immigrant with a gift for mathematics and computer science, had an idea. He wanted to create security software for handheld devices. The world of mobile computing was just beginning to emerge, and Levchin believed that encryption and security would be crucial as people started carrying more of their digital lives in their pockets. He needed funding and expertise, so he approached Peter Thiel, a hedge fund manager and Stanford Law School graduate who had developed a reputation for contrarian thinking and a deep interest in technology. Thiel and Levchin met in Palo Alto, and something clicked. They shared a belief that the future of computing was personal and mobile. They also shared a certain intellectual intensity, a willingness to question conventional wisdom and pursue ideas that others thought were impossible or impractical. Together with Nosek, they founded a company they initially called FieldLink. The name did not last long. They soon rebranded as Confinity, a word meant to suggest confidence and infinity, capturing their ambitions for creating secure systems that would last forever. The team secured $3 million in funding from Nokia Corporation and set to work. They recruited heavily from Stanford and from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where Levchin had studied. Many of the early engineers came from the latter school, creating a tight-knit group that shared technical backgrounds and a certain Midwestern work ethic. The Stanford connection brought in people who had worked on the Stanford Review, a conservative student publication that Thiel had co-founded. This combination of technical brilliance and ideological conviction would become a hallmark of the company's culture. But Confinity's first product was a failure. The encryption software for Palm Pilots generated almost no interest from consumers. The technology was elegant, but nobody seemed to want it. In the harsh world of Silicon Valley startups, this could have been the end of the story. Many companies with better ideas and more funding had already failed or were failing all around them as the dot-com bubble began to show signs of strain. But Thiel and Levchin were not ready to give up. They began to think about what else they could do with their security technology. The pivot came in mid-1999. The team realized that their encryption software could be repurposed for something much more interesting than just securing data on handheld devices. What if you could use it to send money? Not just any money, but digital money that could be transferred instantly from one person to another without going through banks or credit card companies. It was a radical idea. The financial system had been built over centuries on the foundation of trusted intermediaries. Banks, clearinghouses, and payment processors all took their cut of every transaction. What if you could bypass all of that? By October 1999, Confinity had launched PayPal, a service that allowed users to beam money between Palm Pilots using infrared technology. The name PayPal was chosen to be friendly and accessible, unlike the more abstract Confinity. The service quickly evolved to work over email, which was far more practical than requiring people to be in the same room with their Palm Pilots. You could send money to anyone with an email address. If the recipient did not have a PayPal account, they would have to create one to claim the money. It was elegant in its simplicity, and it solved a real problem that was emerging as internet commerce began to take off. Around the same time, just a few doors down in the same building in Palo Alto, another company was working on a similar problem. Elon Musk had founded X.com in March 1999 with money he had made from selling his first company, Zip2. Musk had bigger ambitions than just money transfers. He wanted to create a full-service online bank that would replace traditional financial institutions entirely. X.com would offer checking accounts, savings accounts, loans, and yes, the ability to send money via email. Musk believed that the financial system was ripe for disruption and that the internet provided the perfect platform to rebuild it from scratch. The two companies, Confinity and X.com, occupied adjacent offices. Their teams were friendly, often running into each other in the hallways and at local restaurants. But they were pursuing different strategies. Confinity focused narrowly on person-to-person payments and had found early traction with users on eBay, the online auction site that was growing explosively. X.com was trying to build a broader platform, though Musk recognized that payments were the most promising feature. As both companies grew, they found themselves competing for the same users, particularly on eBay where sellers desperately needed a way to receive payments without having to set up merchant accounts. The competition between Confinity and X.com intensified through late 1999 and into 2000. Both companies were burning through cash at an alarming rate. They were paying users to sign up and refer their friends. Confinity offered $10 for every new user and $10 for each referral. X.com matched this and then doubled it to $20. It was an arms race that neither company could afford to continue indefinitely. The dot-com bubble was beginning to deflate, and venture capital was becoming harder to secure. Something had to give. In March 2000, the inevitable happened. Confinity and X.com merged. The deal was structured as an acquisition of Confinity by X.com, but in reality, it was more of a merger between equals. Both sides recognized that they were stronger together than apart. The combined company would have more resources, less competition, and a clearer path to profitability. Bill Harris, who had been CEO of X.com, remained in that role. Elon Musk, who preferred to focus on technical and product decisions, served as a key executive. Peter Thiel became Executive Vice President of Finance. Max Levchin continued as Chief Technology Officer. The merger was supposed to bring peace, but instead, it brought chaos. The two companies had very different cultures and very different visions for what the combined entity should become. The Confinity team wanted to focus exclusively on PayPal, the person-to-person payment service that was growing like wildfire on eBay. The X.com team wanted to build the full-service online bank that Musk had envisioned. These two visions were fundamentally incompatible, and the combined company could not pursue both with limited resources and in a challenging market environment. The tensions came to a head quickly. Bill Harris, the CEO, resigned in May 2000, just 2 months after the merger. Elon Musk took over as CEO. But Musk's leadership style and strategic vision clashed with many members of the original Confinity team. Musk wanted to rebrand away from PayPal and focus on building X.com into a financial services powerhouse. The Confinity team believed this was a distraction from what was working, which was PayPal's simple, focused payment service. Behind the scenes, factions formed. Meetings became battlegrounds. The company was at risk of tearing itself apart just as it was beginning to find product-market fit. In October 2000, while Musk was on vacation, the board of directors made a dramatic decision. They removed Musk as CEO and installed Peter Thiel in his place. It was a palace coup, Silicon Valley style. Musk, who was the largest shareholder in the company, was devastated but remained involved because his financial future was tied to the company's success. Thiel moved quickly to implement his vision. The company would focus entirely on PayPal. All other products and services would be shut down or de-emphasized. And most significantly, the company would be rebranded. In 2001, X.com officially changed its name to PayPal. The decision to focus exclusively on payments proved to be correct. PayPal's growth accelerated dramatically. The company had found its killer app in eBay. Sellers loved PayPal because it allowed them to accept payments instantly without the hassle and expense of merchant accounts. Buyers loved it because it was fast and did not require sharing credit card information with strangers. By late 2000, PayPal had grown from 12,000 accounts in January to 2.7 million accounts by August. The company was processing millions of dollars in transactions every day. But growth came with its own set of problems. Fraud was rampant. Criminals discovered that they could create PayPal accounts with stolen credit card information, make fraudulent purchases, and disappear before the fraud was detected. The company was losing money on nearly every transaction because of chargebacks and fraud losses. At one point, PayPal was losing tens of millions of dollars to fraud every month. If they could not solve this problem, the company would go bankrupt no matter how fast it grew. Max Levchin and his team worked around the clock to develop fraud detection systems. They built sophisticated algorithms that could identify suspicious patterns of behavior. They tracked IP addresses, device fingerprints, and transaction histories. They implemented machine learning before machine learning was cool. The fraud team became legendary within the company for their technical prowess and their willingness to make hard decisions. If an account looked suspicious, it was frozen immediately. This sometimes meant freezing legitimate accounts, which made some users angry, but it was the only way to keep the criminals at bay. The company also faced regulatory challenges. PayPal was not technically a bank, but it was performing many banking functions. This put it in a gray area legally. Various state and federal agencies began to take notice. Money laundering concerns were raised. Questions were asked about consumer protections. PayPal had to navigate a complex regulatory landscape while moving at startup speed. It was a delicate balance between growth and compliance, between disruption and legitimacy. Despite these challenges, PayPal's trajectory was undeniable. By 2002, the company was ready to go public. The timing was not ideal. The dot-com crash had devastated the technology sector. Many high-flying companies had gone bankrupt or were struggling to survive. Investor enthusiasm for internet companies had evaporated. But PayPal had something most dot-coms did not have. It had real revenue, real users, and a path to profitability. In February 2002, PayPal went public, raising $70 million. The stock price surged 55% on the first day of trading, a remarkable achievement in a brutal market environment. The IPO made many people at PayPal wealthy, but it also attracted attention from a much larger player. eBay had been watching PayPal's growth with a mixture of admiration and concern. On one hand, PayPal was making eBay's platform more useful by providing a payment solution that worked well for both buyers and sellers. On the other hand, PayPal was capturing a significant portion of the value being created on eBay without eBay getting a cut. eBay had its own payment service, BillPoint, but it was losing badly to PayPal. 70% of eBay sellers accepted PayPal, compared to only 30% for BillPoint. In July 2002, eBay announced that it would acquire PayPal for $1.5 billion in stock. It was a validation of everything the PayPal team had built. From a struggling startup that almost ran out of money multiple times, PayPal had become valuable enough to be acquired by one of the most successful internet companies in the world. The acquisition closed in October 2002. For the founders and early employees, it was a life-changing payday. Peter Thiel, who owned about 3.7% of PayPal, made approximately $55 million. Elon Musk, despite having been ousted as CEO, was the largest shareholder and made even more. But the acquisition was not the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. The eBay acquisition was remarkable not because it made people rich, but because of what happened next. Most acquisitions result in the acquired team staying with the parent company, at least for a while. They vest their stock, they help with the integration, and they move on to other roles within the larger organization. The PayPal team did not do this. Within 4 years of the eBay acquisition, only 12 of the first 50 employees remained with the company. The rest had left to pursue new ventures. This mass exodus was not because eBay treated them poorly. By all accounts, eBay tried to retain the PayPal team. But the culture clash was too great. eBay was a traditional corporate environment with hierarchies, processes, and politics. PayPal had been a startup with a flat structure, rapid decision-making, and a belief that they were changing the world. The PayPal people found eBay stifling. More importantly, they had money now. The acquisition had made them wealthy enough to take risks, to start new companies, to invest in other entrepreneurs. And they had learned something valuable from their time at PayPal. They had learned how to build a company from scratch, how to navigate crises, how to scale, and how to exit successfully. The PayPal Mafia, as they would come to be called, stayed in touch after leaving eBay. They helped each other out. They invested in each other's companies. They hired from the PayPal alumni network. They formed partnerships and collaborations. This was not accidental. The culture at PayPal had fostered tight social bonds. The company had been through multiple near-death experiences. They had competed intensely, both with external competitors and with each other internally. This shared struggle created a camaraderie that lasted well beyond their time at the company. In some ways, PayPal had been less like a company and more like a band of brothers, forged in the crucible of startup warfare. Peter Thiel was the first to make a major move after PayPal. In 2004, he became the first outside investor in Facebook, a social networking site founded by Mark Zuckerberg at Harvard. Thiel invested $500,000 for a 10% stake in the company and a seat on the board. At the time, Facebook was just one of many social networking sites competing for users. Friendster and MySpace were already established. Nobody knew if Facebook would succeed. But Thiel saw something in Zuckerberg and in the product that others missed. He saw the potential for Facebook to become the dominant social network by starting with college students and expanding from there. Thiel's investment in Facebook would become legendary. By the time Facebook went public in 2012, Thiel's stake was worth more than $1 billion on paper. Even after selling some shares, his remaining holdings were worth hundreds of millions. It was one of the most successful venture capital investments in history. But for Thiel, it was not just about the money. It validated his approach to investing. He looked for companies with the potential to become monopolies in their markets. He believed that competition was for losers and that the best companies were those that created entirely new categories where they faced no competition. Thiel also co-founded Palantir Technologies in 2003, shortly after leaving PayPal. Palantir was a big data analytics company that worked primarily with government agencies and large corporations. The idea came from Thiel's experience fighting fraud at PayPal. He realized that the tools they had built to detect fraudulent transactions could be applied to other problems, like identifying terrorist financing networks or predicting crime. Palantir was controversial from the start because of its work with intelligence agencies and law enforcement. Privacy advocates criticized the company for enabling surveillance. But Thiel believed that these tools were necessary for national security and that Palantir was on the right side of history. Palantir grew slowly at first but eventually became one of the most valuable private companies in the United States. It went public in 2020 with a valuation of around $20 billion. Thiel's stake made him even wealthier and more influential. He became known as the Don of the PayPal Mafia, the person at the center of the network who had invested in or advised many of the other alumni. His political views, which were libertarian and contrarian, also became more prominent. He supported Donald Trump in 2016 and served as an advisor during the transition. By 2025, Thiel's influence extended beyond business into politics and policy, particularly around technology and national security. Elon Musk's post-PayPal journey was even more dramatic. Despite being removed as CEO, Musk remained the largest shareholder and walked away with the most money when eBay acquired PayPal. He could have retired or become a traditional venture capitalist. Instead, he decided to pursue some of the most ambitious and risky ventures imaginable. In 2002, even before the eBay acquisition closed, Musk founded SpaceX. His goal was nothing less than making humanity a multiplanetary species. He believed that establishing a self-sustaining colony on Mars was necessary for the long-term survival of human civilization. SpaceX was initially met with skepticism and mockery. The space industry was dominated by government agencies like NASA and large defense contractors. It was expensive, highly regulated, and had high barriers to entry. Most people thought Musk would fail and lose all his money. But Musk was relentless. He hired top engineers from the aerospace industry. He learned everything he could about rocket science. He moved to Los Angeles to be close to his team. SpaceX's first 3 launches failed, nearly bankrupting the company. But the 4th launch in 2008 succeeded, and NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. From there, SpaceX continued to achieve milestone after milestone. It became the first private company to send a spacecraft to the International Space Station. It developed reusable rockets that could land vertically after launch, dramatically reducing the cost of access to space. By 2025, SpaceX had become the most valuable aerospace company in the world, with a valuation exceeding $100 billion. Musk's vision of Mars colonization still faced enormous technical and financial challenges, but he had transformed the space industry and made what once seemed impossible now seem merely very difficult. In 2004, Musk also became involved with Tesla Motors, an electric car company founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Musk led Tesla's Series A funding round and became chairman of the board. Over time, he became more deeply involved in the company's operations and eventually became CEO. Tesla's mission was to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy by making electric cars that people actually wanted to drive. The automotive industry was skeptical. Electric cars had a reputation for being slow, ugly, and impractical. But Tesla's first car, the Roadster, proved that electric cars could be fast and desirable. Tesla faced numerous challenges over the years. It nearly went bankrupt during the 2008 financial crisis. Production problems plagued the Model S and Model X. The Model 3, which was supposed to be Tesla's mass-market car, experienced a production hell that almost destroyed the company. Musk slept in the factory, working around the clock to solve problems. Critics predicted Tesla's demise repeatedly. But somehow, Musk and his team pulled through each crisis. By 2020, Tesla had become the most valuable automotive company in the world, surpassing giants like Toyota and Volkswagen. Musk became the richest person on Earth, with a net worth exceeding $200 billion by some estimates. Musk's other ventures included SolarCity, a solar panel company later acquired by Tesla, Neuralink, which aimed to create brain-computer interfaces, and The Boring Company, which built tunnels for transportation. In 2022, he acquired Twitter for $44 billion and rebranded it as X, reviving the name from his old internet banking company. Each of these ventures pursued ambitious, world-changing goals. Musk's approach was to identify problems that he believed were critical for humanity's future and then throw himself into solving them regardless of the difficulty or the odds of success. Max Levchin, the technical genius behind PayPal's fraud detection systems, took a different path after leaving the company. In 2004, he founded Slide, a personal media sharing software for social networking sites. Slide created widgets and applications that users could add to their MySpace and Facebook profiles. At its peak, Slide's apps were being used by hundreds of millions of people. Google acquired Slide in 2010 for $182 million. However, the acquisition did not work out well. Google shut down most of Slide's products within a year, and Levchin left Google. Levchin's next major venture was Affirm, a financial technology company that he founded in 2012. Affirm offered point-of-sale loans, allowing consumers to buy products online and pay for them in installments. The company positioned itself as a more transparent and consumer-friendly alternative to credit cards. Affirm partnered with major retailers like Walmart, Amazon, and Target. It went public in 2021 with a valuation of around $12 billion. Levchin also invested in and advised numerous other startups, including Yelp, where he served as chairman. Throughout his career, Levchin maintained his focus on solving hard technical problems, particularly in the areas of fraud prevention and financial technology. He was known for his hands-on approach to engineering and his belief that the best products came from deep technical understanding. Unlike some of his PayPal colleagues who became more focused on investing or advising, Levchin continued to be a builder, someone who wanted to create new products and companies rather than just fund them. Reid Hoffman, who had been executive vice president and chief operating officer at PayPal, founded LinkedIn in December 2002, just months after the eBay acquisition closed. Hoffman had been thinking about professional networking for years. He believed that people's professional identities were becoming increasingly important in the internet age and that there was a need for a platform that could help people manage their careers, find jobs, and connect with colleagues and peers. LinkedIn launched in May 2003 with a simple interface that allowed users to create professional profiles and connect with people they knew. LinkedIn's early growth was slow. It took months to reach the first million users. Many people did not understand the point of the platform. Why would you want to recreate your professional network online? But Hoffman was patient. He knew that network effects would take time to kick in. As more people joined LinkedIn, it became more valuable for everyone. You joined because your colleagues and connections were there. The more people who joined, the more valuable it became, creating a virtuous cycle. Hoffman also experimented with different business models. LinkedIn initially tried to make money through premium subscriptions that gave users additional features. Later, it added advertising. But the real breakthrough came when LinkedIn realized it could charge recruiters and companies for access to its user base. LinkedIn became an essential tool for hiring. Companies paid to post jobs, to search for candidates, and to reach out to potential employees. This B2B model proved far more lucrative than consumer subscriptions or advertising. LinkedIn went public in May 2011. The stock price more than doubled on the first day of trading. Hoffman's stake was worth over $2 billion. In 2016, Microsoft acquired LinkedIn for $26.2 billion, one of the largest technology acquisitions in history. Hoffman joined Microsoft's board of directors and remained involved with LinkedIn's strategy. By 2025, LinkedIn had over 1 billion users worldwide and had become the dominant platform for professional networking. Beyond LinkedIn, Hoffman became one of the most influential venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. He was a partner at Greylock Partners, where he invested in companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, and Convoy. He was also an early investor in Facebook, alongside Peter Thiel. Hoffman wrote books about entrepreneurship and innovation, including The Startup of You and Blitzscaling. He hosted a podcast called Masters of Scale where he interviewed successful entrepreneurs about how they built their companies. Hoffman's approach to investing and advising emphasized the importance of networks, relationships, and scaling rapidly when you found product-market fit. Hoffman was also active in politics and philanthropy. Unlike some of his PayPal colleagues who became more conservative or libertarian, Hoffman remained progressive and was a major donor to democratic causes. He supported Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020. He also invested in efforts to combat misinformation, strengthen democratic institutions, and promote ethical uses of artificial intelligence. In 2023, Hoffman co-founded Inflection AI, a company focused on developing safe and beneficial artificial intelligence systems. Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Karim were engineers and designers at PayPal who went on to co-found YouTube in 2005. The idea for YouTube came from a simple problem. They had trouble sharing videos online. Existing video hosting services were clunky, required special software, and had poor user interfaces. Chen, Hurley, and Karim believed they could build something better. They created a website where anyone could upload, share, and watch videos easily. The interface was dead simple. Upload a video, share a link, done. YouTube launched in February 2005. The first video, uploaded by Karim, was an 18-second clip of him at the zoo talking about elephants. It was unremarkable, but it proved that the technology worked. YouTube's growth was explosive. Users uploaded millions of videos. The site became the go-to place for everything from music videos to funny cat clips to how-to tutorials. By October 2006, just 20 months after launching, YouTube was streaming 100 million videos per day and had become one of the most visited websites in the world. the growth also brought challenges. Copyright infringement was rampant. Users uploaded entire television shows, movies, and music videos without permission. Media companies threatened to sue. YouTube had to develop Content ID, a system that automatically detected copyrighted content and gave copyright owners the option to block it or monetize it by running ads. This system was not perfect, but it allowed YouTube to build relationships with media companies rather than being sued into oblivion. In October 2006, Google acquired YouTube for $1.65 billion in stock. It was a massive payday for the founders, who had started the company just 20 months earlier. Chen, Hurley, and Karim left YouTube within a few years of the acquisition, though they remained involved in various capacities. YouTube continued to grow under Google's ownership, becoming the second most visited website in the world after Google itself. By 2025, YouTube had over 2 billion users and was a major platform for entertainment, education, and content creation. David Sacks, who had been chief operating officer at PayPal, pursued multiple ventures after leaving eBay. In 2008, he founded Yammer, an enterprise social networking service that allowed employees within companies to communicate and collaborate. Yammer was sometimes described as Facebook for the workplace. Companies signed up to create private networks where their employees could share information, ask questions, and work together more effectively. Yammer grew quickly, reaching over 5 million users in just a few years. Microsoft acquired Yammer in 2012 for $1.2 billion in cash. It was the fastest billion-dollar software-as-a-service exit in tech history at the time, from founding to exit. Sacks stayed at Microsoft for a short time to help with the integration, but he was not interested in working at a large corporation. He left to become an angel investor and venture capitalist. Sacks invested in and advised numerous startups, including Uber, SpaceX, Airbnb, and Slack. He also co-founded Craft Ventures, a venture capital firm that focused on early-stage technology companies. Sacks became known for his sharp analysis of technology trends and his willingness to speak his mind on controversial topics. He co-hosted a podcast called All In with 3 other technology investors, including Jason Calacanis and Chamath Palihapitiya. The podcast became hugely popular, attracting hundreds of thousands of listeners who tuned in to hear the hosts debate everything from tech valuations to politics to macroeconomics. Sacks' political views shifted over the years. He became more critical of progressive policies and more aligned with libertarian and conservative perspectives, particularly on issues related to free speech, regulation, and the role of government in technology. Roelof Botha, who had been chief financial officer at PayPal, joined Sequoia Capital, one of the most prestigious venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. At Sequoia, Botha became one of the most successful venture capitalists of his generation. He led investments in YouTube, Eventbrite, Instagram, MongoDB, Natera, Square, Tumblr, Unity, and Zoom. Many of these companies went public or were acquired for billions of dollars. Botha's track record was remarkable for its consistency. He seemed to have a knack for identifying exceptional founders and helping them build enduring companies. Botha's investment philosophy was influenced by his time at PayPal. He looked for companies that could benefit from network effects, where the value of the product increased as more people used it. He also valued execution and operational excellence. Having seen PayPal navigate multiple near-death experiences, Botha understood that startups needed more than just a good idea. They needed teams that could execute relentlessly, solve hard problems, and adapt to changing circumstances. He brought this perspective to his work at Sequoia, where he became known as a hands-on investor who worked closely with founders. In 2022, Botha became the steward of Sequoia Capital, effectively the leader of the firm. Under his leadership, Sequoia continued to be one of the most successful and influential venture capital firms in the world. Botha's success demonstrated that the PayPal Mafia's influence extended beyond just starting new companies. They also shaped the investment landscape, funding and advising the next generation of entrepreneurs. Jeremy Stoppelman and Russell Simmons, who had been engineers at PayPal, co-founded Yelp in 2004. Yelp was a local search and review website that allowed users to find and rate businesses like restaurants, shops, and services. The idea came from Stoppelman's frustration with finding a good doctor. He wanted a way to read reviews from real people who had actually used the service, not just marketing materials from the businesses themselves. Yelp addressed this need by creating a platform where anyone could write a review and help others make better decisions. Yelp's growth was driven by its community of reviewers, known as Yelpers, who wrote millions of reviews for businesses in cities around the world. The site became particularly valuable for restaurants and other local businesses that relied on word of mouth. A good Yelp rating could drive significant traffic, while a bad rating could hurt business. This gave Yelp significant power, which sometimes led to controversies. Some businesses claimed that Yelp manipulated reviews or pressured them to buy advertising. Yelp denied these allegations, but the controversies highlighted the platform's influence. Yelp went public in 2012 with a valuation of over $1 billion. Stoppelman remained CEO and continued to lead the company's expansion into new markets and categories. By 2025, Yelp had become an essential resource for millions of people looking for local businesses, though it faced competition from Google, which integrated reviews into its search results and maps. Keith Rabois, who had been executive vice president of business development at PayPal, became a serial entrepreneur and investor. After PayPal, he held executive positions at LinkedIn, where he was vice president of business and corporate development, and at Square, where he was chief operating officer. At Square, Rabois helped scale the company from a tiny startup with fewer than 1,000 customers to a multi-billion-dollar company that went public in 2015. Square's mobile payment technology made it easy for small businesses and individuals to accept credit card payments using their smartphones. Rabois also became an active angel investor and venture capitalist. He invested in companies like Airbnb, Stripe, and Ramp. He joined Founders Fund, the venture capital firm co-founded by Peter Thiel, as a general partner. Rabois was known for his direct, sometimes confrontational style and his strong opinions about technology, business, and politics. He believed in the importance of high standards, aggressive growth, and clear thinking. Like several other PayPal alumni, he became more libertarian in his political views over time and was critical of what he saw as excessive regulation and political correctness in Silicon Valley. Luke Nosek, one of the original co-founders of PayPal alongside Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, became a venture capitalist after leaving the company. He co-founded Founders Fund with Thiel in 2005. Founders Fund took a contrarian approach to venture capital. The firm's motto was "We wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters," a critique of what they saw as the tech industry's focus on trivial social media apps rather than solving big, hard problems. Founders Fund invested in companies working on ambitious projects like SpaceX, Palantir, and later, companies working on nuclear fusion, life extension, and artificial intelligence. Nosek also co-founded GigaFund, a venture capital firm focused exclusively on SpaceX and other space-related ventures. GigaFund raised billions of dollars to invest in SpaceX at various stages, betting on Musk's vision of making humanity a multiplanetary species. Nosek's investment philosophy reflected the same ambitious, contrarian thinking that had characterized PayPal. He was willing to take big risks on projects that most people thought were impossible or impractical, as long as the potential payoff was enormous and the team was exceptional. Ken Howry, another PayPal co-founder who had served as chief financial officer, followed a similar path. He co-founded Founders Fund with Thiel and Nosek and invested in many of the same companies. Howry later served as United States ambassador to Sweden during the Trump administration from 2017 to 2021. His appointment reflected the PayPal Mafia's growing influence not just in business and technology but also in government and policy. By 2025, several PayPal alumni held significant positions in both the private and public sectors. Premal Shah, who had been a product manager at PayPal, took a different path. Instead of founding or funding for-profit companies, Shah became president of Kiva, a non-profit organization that pioneered microfinance through peer-to-peer lending. Kiva allowed people to lend small amounts of money to entrepreneurs in developing countries who lacked access to traditional banking services. A person in the United States could lend $25 to help a farmer in Kenya buy seeds or a woman in India start a small business. The loans were repaid over time, and lenders could then lend to someone else. Kiva grew to become one of the most successful non-profit organizations using technology for social impact. It facilitated over $1 billion in loans to entrepreneurs around the world. Shah's work at Kiva demonstrated that the skills and networks developed at PayPal could be applied to solving social problems, not just building profitable businesses. His success inspired other technology entrepreneurs to think about how they could use their resources and expertise for social good. The list of successful PayPal alumni goes on. Karim, one of the YouTube co-founders, went on to become an angel investor, backing companies like Airbnb and Reddit. Ishan Wong, who was an engineering manager at PayPal, later became CEO of Reddit and then worked at Facebook. Dave McClure, who ran marketing at PayPal, founded 500 Startups, one of the most active seed-stage investment firms in the world. Andrew McCormack, who had been vice president of marketing, went on to hold executive positions at multiple startups and became an angel investor. Scott Bannister, who worked in business development, became a prolific angel investor with stakes in companies like Uber, SpaceX, and Facebook. The collective impact of the PayPal Mafia is staggering when you step back and look at the full picture. By 2025, companies founded or co-founded by PayPal alumni had a combined market value exceeding $1 trillion. Tesla alone was worth over $600 billion. SpaceX was valued at over $150 billion. LinkedIn had been acquired for $26 billion. YouTube was estimated to be worth over $100 billion as part of Google. Palantir was worth around $20 billion. These were just the largest examples. The PayPal alumni network had also invested in hundreds of other successful companies, including many of the most valuable startups of the past 2 decades. But numbers alone do not capture the full impact of the PayPal Mafia. What made them truly remarkable was not just their financial success but the way they approached problems and opportunities. They shared certain characteristics and beliefs that set them apart from other entrepreneurs and investors. Understanding these shared traits helps explain why so many people from one company went on to achieve such extraordinary success. First, they had an intense focus on product quality and user experience. At PayPal, the team obsessed over every detail of the product. How many clicks did it take to send money? How could they reduce friction? What features did users actually want versus what the team thought they should want? This product obsession carried over to their later ventures. Elon Musk famously spent countless hours in Tesla factories perfecting manufacturing processes. Reid Hoffman constantly iterated on LinkedIn's features based on user feedback. Chen and his co-founders made YouTube's interface so simple that anyone could use it. This focus on building great products, not just viable businesses, became a hallmark of PayPal alumni. Second, they embraced first principles thinking. Rather than accepting conventional wisdom or industry norms, they questioned everything and tried to reason from fundamental truths. This approach came from Peter Thiel, who had studied philosophy at Stanford and believed that most people simply copied what others were doing rather than thinking independently. At PayPal, first principles thinking led to insights like realizing that fraud detection was fundamentally a pattern recognition problem that could be solved with machine learning. After PayPal, this mindset led to even more radical innovations. Elon Musk applied first principles thinking to space travel, asking why rockets were so expensive and whether they could be made reusable. He applied the same thinking to electric cars, batteries, and tunneling. Others in the PayPal Mafia used this approach to question assumptions in their respective industries. Third, they were willing to be contrarian and to pursue ideas that others thought were crazy. Peter Thiel wrote in his book 0 to 1 that the most valuable companies are those that create something truly new rather than copying existing ideas. This philosophy permeated the PayPal Mafia. When Elon Musk said he wanted to colonize Mars, people thought he was insane. When he said he would make electric cars that were better than gasoline cars, the automotive industry laughed. When Peter Thiel invested in Facebook when it was just a college social network, many thought social networking was already a crowded space. When Reid Hoffman started LinkedIn, professional networking seemed boring compared to consumer social networks. But being contrarian meant being willing to be wrong and to be mocked. The PayPal alumni had developed thick skin during their time at the company, when they had been dismissed as just another dot-com startup that would fail. Fourth, they understood network effects and viral growth. PayPal itself had grown through viral mechanisms. Users invited their friends to join so they could send and receive money. Each new user made the network more valuable. This insight about network effects became central to many of the companies that PayPal alumni went on to build or invest in. LinkedIn was built entirely on network effects. YouTube benefited from viral sharing of videos. Facebook's growth was driven by network effects. Tesla's supercharger network created a form of network effects for electric vehicles. Understanding how to build products that became more valuable as they scaled gave PayPal alumni a significant advantage in identifying and building successful companies. Fifth, they were builders and doers, not just talkers or theorists. The culture at PayPal emphasized execution and results. Ideas were cheap. What mattered was shipping products, acquiring users, and solving problems. This bias toward action continued after PayPal. While many people talked about what should be done, PayPal alumni actually did it. They started companies. They wrote code. They hired teams. They raised money. They shipped products. This relentless focus on execution, combined with high standards for quality, made them formidable entrepreneurs and investors. Sixth, they maintained strong relationships with each other and helped each other succeed. The PayPal Mafia was not just a group of people who happened to work at the same company. It was a network of individuals who actively supported each other's ventures. Peter Thiel invested in LinkedIn and SpaceX. Reid Hoffman invested in Facebook and many companies funded by other PayPal alumni. Roelof Botha led Sequoia's investment in YouTube. Keith Rabois joined LinkedIn and then Square. These were not just financial investments or job opportunities. They represented genuine efforts to help each other succeed. The PayPal alumni trusted each other because they had been through battles together. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. This mutual support multiplied their individual capabilities and created a network effect of talent and capital. Seventh, they thought on long-time horizons. While many entrepreneurs and investors focused on quarterly results or quick exits, PayPal alumni were willing to pursue visions that would take decades to realize. Elon Musk's goal of colonizing Mars would not be achieved in his lifetime, but he worked toward it anyway. Peter Thiel invested in life extension research and other projects that might take 50 years to pay off. Reid Hoffman thought about how professional networks would evolve over decades, not just years. This long-term thinking allowed them to make bets that others would not make and to stick with difficult projects when others would have given up. The culture at PayPal that fostered these traits was intentional. Peter Thiel and Max Levchin created an environment that attracted smart, ambitious, and somewhat rebellious people. The company hired heavily from Stanford and the University of Illinois, but they were not looking for conventional candidates. They wanted people who thought differently, who were willing to challenge authority, and who cared deeply about the work. The early PayPal team included libertarians, conservatives, and liberals. They argued intensely about ideas but respected each other's intelligence and commitment. The company also created a culture of extreme transparency and debate. Meetings at PayPal were notorious for being confrontational. People challenged each other's ideas aggressively. There was no deference to hierarchy or seniority. If you had a good argument, it did not matter what your title was. This intellectual combat was uncomfortable for some people, but it also meant that the best ideas usually won. Bad ideas were exposed and abandoned quickly. This culture of rigorous debate prepared PayPal alumni for the challenges they would face as entrepreneurs and investors, where they would constantly need to evaluate ideas, make decisions with incomplete information, and change course when necessary. PayPal also operated in a constant state of crisis. The company nearly ran out of money multiple times. Fraud threatened to bankrupt the business. Regulators investigated them. Competitors tried to crush them. These crises forced the team to develop resilience, creativity, and the ability to make fast decisions under pressure. Many startups face one or two major crises. PayPal faced a dozen. Surviving this gauntlet gave the team confidence that they could handle anything. After PayPal, when they faced challenges in their new ventures, they knew they had overcome worse. This psychological resilience was perhaps as important as any technical or business skill they developed. The timing of PayPal was also significant. The company was founded during the dot-com boom, survived the crash, and exited successfully when most internet companies were still struggling. This experience gave PayPal alumni a unique perspective. They had seen the irrational exuberance of the bubble. They had watched companies with no real business models raise hundreds of millions of dollars and then collapse. They had learned to distinguish between hype and reality, between companies that were building real value and those that were just riding a wave. This skepticism and discernment served them well in later years when new bubbles and manias swept through Silicon Valley. The PayPal exit also created a unique situation. The eBay acquisition happened at a time when the founders and early employees were still relatively young. Peter Thiel was 34. Elon Musk was 31. Reid Hoffman was 35. Max Levchin was 27. They were young enough to start over and take risks, but they also had money and experience. This combination of youth, capital, and hard-won wisdom was rare. Most successful entrepreneurs either exit when they are too old to start again with the same energy, or they are too young and inexperienced to know what to do with their success. The PayPal team hit a sweet spot. The geographic concentration of the PayPal Mafia in Silicon Valley also mattered. They lived near each other, ran into each other at coffee shops and restaurants, and attended the same events. This physical proximity facilitated the exchange of ideas and the formation of partnerships. If Reid Hoffman needed advice about scaling LinkedIn, he could grab coffee with Max Levchin. If Elon Musk wanted feedback on a new idea, he could call Peter Thiel. This informal network of advisors and collaborators was incredibly valuable. It meant that PayPal alumni had access to world-class expertise on virtually any business or technology question. The media also played a role in amplifying the PayPal Mafia's influence. In 2007, Fortune magazine published an article titled The PayPal Mafia, which identified the key members of the network and documented their success. The article itself did not create the phenomenon, but it gave it a name and made it visible to the broader public. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the PayPal Mafia. Journalists wrote profiles. Business schools created case studies. The PayPal Mafia became a brand, a signal of excellence and ambition. This visibility created a virtuous cycle. Talented people wanted to work for companies founded by PayPal alumni. Investors wanted to fund them. The PayPal Mafia brand became self-reinforcing. However, the success of the PayPal Mafia also raised important questions and criticisms. Some observers pointed out that the PayPal team was overwhelmingly male and lacked diversity. The company's culture of aggressive debate and confrontation appealed to a particular personality type, and this may have excluded people who would have thrived in a different environment. The lack of women and minorities in the PayPal Mafia reflected broader problems in Silicon Valley, where networks and pattern matching often perpetuated homogeneity. By 2025, there was increasing recognition that the tech industry needed to do better at creating opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds. Others questioned whether the PayPal Mafia's success was replicable or whether it was the result of unique circumstances that were unlikely to repeat. The dot-com boom and bust created opportunities and lessons that may not exist in other eras. The acquisition by eBay at the right moment provided capital and freedom at a crucial point in their careers. The rise of social media, mobile computing, and other technology trends happened to align with their areas of interest and expertise. Would a similar group of people working at a different company or at a different time achieve the same level of success? It is impossible to know for certain, but luck and timing clearly played a role alongside skill and vision. There were also ethical questions about some of the ventures pursued by PayPal alumni. Palantir's work with intelligence agencies and its role in surveillance raised concerns about privacy and civil liberties. Tesla's manufacturing challenges and Elon Musk's controversial statements on social media generated criticism. Facebook, where Peter Thiel was an early investor and board member, faced intense scrutiny over its handling of user data, its role in spreading misinformation, and its impact on democracy. Some critics argued that the PayPal Mafia, with its libertarian leanings and focus on disruption, had not adequately considered the societal impacts of the technologies and companies they were building. The PayPal Mafia's political activities also became controversial. Peter Thiel's support for Donald Trump in 2016 shocked many in Silicon Valley, which leaned heavily Democratic. Thiel spoke at the Republican National Convention and served as an advisor during Trump's transition. He argued that Trump represented a necessary challenge to a failing establishment and that Silicon Valley's political homogeneity was unhealthy. Others in the PayPal Mafia, like Reid Hoffman, took the opposite political stance and actively opposed Trump. These political divisions reflected broader tensions in American society and raised questions about the role of wealthy technology entrepreneurs in shaping political outcomes. Despite these controversies and criticisms, the PayPal Mafia's influence on technology, business, and society was undeniable by 2025. They had created or funded many of the most important companies of the 21st century. They had pushed the boundaries of what was possible in industries ranging from space exploration to social networking to financial services. They had demonstrated that a relatively small group of people with aligned values and mutual support could have an outsized impact on the world. The story of the PayPal Mafia also offers lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs and investors. The importance of culture and hiring cannot be overstated. PayPal succeeded not just because it had a good idea, but because it assembled an extraordinary team of people who challenged each other, supported each other, and pushed each other to excel. The relationships formed during times of struggle and adversity tend to be the strongest and most enduring. The crises that PayPal faced could have destroyed the company, but instead they forged bonds that lasted for decades. Another lesson is the value of first principles thinking and contrarian ideas. The biggest opportunities often lie in areas where conventional wisdom says something is impossible or impractical. If everyone agrees that an idea is good, it is probably already being pursued by many people, which means competition will be intense and returns will be limited. But if most people think an idea is crazy, and you can see a path that others cannot, that is where the potential for extraordinary success lies. Of course, most crazy ideas really are crazy, which is why first principles thinking is essential. You need to be able to distinguish between ideas that are contrarian and correct versus ideas that are just contrarian. The PayPal Mafia also demonstrated the power of networks and relationships in business. Success is rarely a solo endeavor. The support, advice, and capital that PayPal alumni provided to each other multiplied their individual capabilities. When Reid Hoffman needed his first investors for LinkedIn, he turned to people he knew from PayPal. When Roelof Botha was evaluating YouTube as an investment for Sequoia, he had insights from knowing the founders personally. When Elon Musk needed someone to help him navigate the challenges at Tesla, he brought in people from his network who had operational experience. These relationships were built on trust that had been earned through shared experiences. Long-term thinking and patience were also crucial. Many of the most valuable companies created by PayPal alumni took years or even decades to reach their full potential. SpaceX's first 3 rocket launches failed. Tesla nearly went bankrupt multiple times. LinkedIn took years to find its business model. Palantir operated as a private company for 17 years before going public. In each case, the founders and investors had to maintain conviction in their vision even when others doubted them. This required not just patience but also the financial resources to survive during difficult periods. The PayPal exit provided that financial cushion. The ability to learn from failure and to iterate quickly was another key factor in the PayPal Mafia's success. Confinity's first product, encryption software for Palm Pilots, was a complete failure. But instead of giving up, the team pivoted to payments. When PayPal struggled with fraud, the team built new systems to combat it. When regulatory challenges emerged, they hired lawyers and compliance experts. This adaptability and willingness to change course when necessary separated successful companies from failed ones. Many entrepreneurs fall in love with their initial idea and refuse to change even when the market is telling them it does not work. The PayPal team learned to listen to feedback and to adjust. The importance of product obsession and user experience was another critical lesson. In competitive markets, the company with the best product usually wins over time. PayPal succeeded on eBay not because it had the most funding or the best connections, but because sellers and buyers preferred it to the alternatives. It was faster, easier to use, and more reliable. This same focus on product quality characterized the later ventures of PayPal alumni. Tesla succeeded not just because it made electric cars, but because it made electric cars that were better than gasoline cars in terms of performance, design, and software. YouTube won because it made video sharing easier than any alternative. LinkedIn succeeded because it built a professional network that actually helped people find jobs and make connections. Looking ahead from 2025, the question was whether the PayPal mafia's influence would continue or whether it would fade as new generations of entrepreneurs emerged. Some PayPal alumni were still actively building companies and making investments. Elon Musk continued to push forward with SpaceX, Tesla, and his other ventures. Peter Thiel remained influential through Palantir and his investments. Reid Hoffman was involved in artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. Others had stepped back from active roles but remained engaged as advisors and investors. The next generation of entrepreneurs was certainly aware of the PayPal mafia and studied their successes and failures. Many tried to replicate the formula by building strong teams, focusing on network effects, and thinking on long-time horizons. But the specific combination of factors that created the PayPal mafia, including the timing, the shared experiences, and the unique individuals involved, might not be easily replicated. Every generation of entrepreneurs faces different opportunities and challenges. The dot-com boom and bust created one set of lessons. The mobile and social media revolutions created another. The artificial intelligence revolution of the 2020s would create yet another. What seemed certain was that the PayPal mafia had left a permanent mark on Silicon Valley and on the broader business world. They had shown that it was possible for a relatively small group of people to start from almost nothing and build companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They had demonstrated that ambitious goals, even ones that seemed impossible, could be achieved with the right combination of talent, capital, persistence, and luck. They had created a model for how networks of entrepreneurs and investors could support each other and multiply their impact. The companies they built touched billions of lives. YouTube changed how people consumed video content and created opportunities for millions of content creators. LinkedIn helped hundreds of millions of people manage their careers and find jobs. Tesla accelerated the transition to electric vehicles and renewable energy. SpaceX reduced the cost of space access and reignited dreams of space exploration. PayPal itself made it easier for millions of people to conduct commerce online. These were not trivial achievements. They represented genuine contributions to human progress and prosperity. At the same time, the PayPal mafia story was also a reminder of the concentration of wealth and power in the technology industry. A small number of individuals had accumulated extraordinary wealth and influence. This raised questions about inequality, about the role of government regulation, and about the responsibilities that come with such power. As artificial intelligence and other transformative technologies continued to develop, these questions would only become more pressing. The cultural and philosophical influences that shaped the PayPal mafia also deserved examination. Many of them had been influenced by libertarian ideas about individual freedom, limited government, and the power of markets. These ideas shaped how they thought about building companies, about regulation, and about the role of technology in society. But by 2025, there was growing recognition that technology companies had significant externalities and social impacts that markets alone might not address. The optimism of the early internet era, when it seemed that technology would inevitably make the world better, had given way to a more nuanced understanding that technology could be used for good or ill. The PayPal mafia's emphasis on first principles thinking and contrarian ideas had led to remarkable innovations, but it had also sometimes led to a dismissiveness of concerns raised by others. When critics raised questions about privacy, inequality, or the societal impacts of technology, some in the PayPal mafia saw this as resistance to progress or an inability to think beyond conventional wisdom. But these concerns often reflected legitimate trade-offs and unintended consequences that deserved serious consideration. The challenge for the next generation of entrepreneurs would be to maintain the ambition and creativity of the PayPal mafia while being more thoughtful about the broader impacts of their work. The story of the PayPal Mafia was ultimately a story about human potential and about the power of ideas and relationships. A group of young people came together at the end of the 1990s to work on what seemed like a simple problem. How do you send money over the internet? In the process of solving that problem, they learned how to build companies, how to think about technology, and how to work together. When the company was acquired, they could have retired or taken safe jobs at established companies. Instead, they used what they had learned to pursue even more ambitious goals. Some succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Elon Musk became the richest person in the world and was working to make humanity a multiplanetary species. Peter Thiel became a billionaire many times over and one of the most influential thinkers in Silicon Valley. Reid Hoffman built LinkedIn into the dominant professional network and became a leading voice on entrepreneurship and scaling. Others had more modest but still remarkable successes. Almost all of them used their resources and expertise to fund and advise the next generation of entrepreneurs. The PayPal Mafia showed that where you start does not determine where you end up. Most of them did not come from wealthy families or attend elite prep schools. Max Levchin immigrated from Ukraine. Elon Musk grew up in South Africa. Many others came from middle-class backgrounds in various parts of the United States. What they had was intelligence, ambition, work ethic, and each other. They found each other at PayPal, formed relationships that lasted, and helped each other succeed. Their story also showed the importance of timing and luck. They were in the right place at the right time, working on the right problems. If the dot-com bubble had not created opportunities for new internet companies, PayPal might never have gotten funded. If eBay had not been growing explosively and needed a payment solution, PayPal might not have found its killer app. If eBay had not acquired PayPal at the moment it did, the founders might not have had the capital and freedom to pursue their next ventures. Luck and timing played a role, but they also created their own luck by working hard, taking risks, and persisting through failures. As the 2020s progressed, the full impact of the PayPal Mafia was still unfolding. SpaceX was working toward its goal of landing humans on Mars. Tesla was still scaling production of electric vehicles and batteries. Palantir was expanding its work in artificial intelligence and data analytics. New companies founded by or funded by PayPal alumni were emerging in areas like biotechnology, nuclear energy, and artificial intelligence. The network continued to generate new ideas and new ventures. The relationships that formed at PayPal in the early 2000s remained strong more than 2 decades later. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, despite their falling out during the X.com and PayPal merger, had repaired their relationship and occasionally collaborated. Reid Hoffman and many of the other PayPal alumni stayed in regular contact, sharing ideas and supporting each other's work. The annual gatherings and informal dinners where PayPal alumni reconnected became legendary, with attendees representing hundreds of billions of dollars in combined wealth and influence. For those outside the PayPal Mafia looking in, the network could seem intimidating or even exclusionary. Breaking into Silicon Valley's elite circles was difficult if you did not have the right connections or background. But many PayPal alumni worked to create opportunities for others. They mentored young entrepreneurs. They funded diverse founders who might not have access to traditional venture capital. They taught courses and gave talks sharing what they had learned. They wrote books and essays making their knowledge available to anyone who wanted to learn. The ultimate significance of the PayPal Mafia might not be the specific companies they built or the wealth they accumulated. It might be the demonstration that a small group of people with a shared vision and mutual support can have an extraordinary impact on the world. In an age of large institutions, bureaucracies, and established hierarchies, the PayPal Mafia showed that upstarts could still win. That new companies could still disrupt industries. That ambitious goals could still be achieved. They also showed that entrepreneurship was not just about making money. Most of the PayPal alumni could have retired after the eBay acquisition and lived comfortably for the rest of their lives. Instead, they kept working, kept building, and kept pushing themselves to solve bigger problems. For many of them, the work was intrinsically motivating. They wanted to create something meaningful, to leave a mark on the world, to prove that things that seemed impossible could be done. The PayPal Mafia's legacy would be debated for generations. Were they heroes who advanced human progress through innovation and entrepreneurship? Were they emblematic of broader problems with inequality and concentrated power in the technology industry? Were they simply talented individuals who happened to be in the right place at the right time? The answer was probably all of these things. Human stories are rarely simple, and the story of the PayPal Mafia was no exception. What was clear was that their impact extended far beyond the company where they first came together. PayPal itself had become a standard part of internet commerce, used by hundreds of millions of people around the world. But the real story was what happened after PayPal. The companies founded, the investments made, the ideas propagated, the network effects of talent and capital, all of this created a legacy that would endure long after the individuals themselves were gone. For anyone studying entrepreneurship, venture capital, or Silicon Valley, the PayPal Mafia offered invaluable lessons. About building great teams. About thinking from first principles. About the power of networks and relationships. About persistence in the face of failure. About thinking on long-time horizons. About the importance of product quality and user experience. About being contrarian but right. These lessons were not secret or proprietary. They were available to anyone willing to study the history and learn from it. The story of the PayPal Mafia was also a reminder that success often comes from collaboration rather than individual genius. While individuals like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Reid Hoffman received most of the attention and credit, they succeeded in part because they were surrounded by other talented people who complemented their skills and challenged their thinking. Max Levchin's technical brilliance made PayPal's fraud detection possible. Roelof Botha's financial acumen helped the company navigate toward profitability. David Sachs' operational skills helped scale the business. Every member of the team played a role. The PayPal Mafia also illustrated how company culture shapes outcomes. The culture of rigorous debate, high standards, and intellectual honesty that Peter Thiel and Max Levchin created at PayPal influenced how alumni approached their later ventures. They hired people who could think independently and challenge assumptions. They created environments where ideas were judged on merit rather than hierarchy. They prioritized execution and results over process and credentials. This cultural DNA was replicated in various forms at Tesla, LinkedIn, YouTube, Palantir, and many other companies. Looking at the full arc of the PayPal story from its founding in 1998 through 2025, what stood out was the unpredictability of it all. Nobody in 1998 could have predicted that this group of people working on internet payments would go on to found or fund so many of the most important companies of the next quarter century. If you had told the early PayPal team that one of them would become the richest person in the world, that another would build the dominant professional network, that others would create the biggest video platform or the most valuable private space company, they probably would not have believed it. But perhaps that unpredictability was part of the point. The future is always uncertain. Success is never guaranteed. The PayPal team did not know they would succeed when they started. They faced overwhelming odds, fierce competition, and numerous near-death experiences. What they had was a willingness to try, a commitment to each other, and a refusal to give up. Those qualities, more than any specific strategy or insight, were what ultimately made the difference. The PayPal Mafia story was still being written in 2025. Some of its members were in their 50s and 60s, with decades of productive work potentially ahead of them. Others had passed the torch to younger generations while remaining engaged as advisors and investors. New challenges and opportunities continued to emerge. Artificial intelligence, climate change, space colonization, the future of work, longevity and health. The PayPal alumni continued to apply their talents and resources to these problems. Whatever the future held, the PayPal Mafia had already secured their place in the history of business and technology. They had shown what was possible when talented people came together with a shared mission. They had demonstrated that failure was not fatal and that persistence could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. They had created companies and technologies that touched billions of lives. And they had built a network and a culture that would continue to generate innovation and impact for decades to come. The story of the PayPal Mafia was ultimately an optimistic story, It suggested that individuals could still make a difference, that new ideas could still win, that the future was not predetermined but could be shaped by those with vision and determination. In a world that often seemed dominated by large institutions and impersonal forces, the PayPal Mafia reminded us that small groups of dedicated people could change the world. They had done it once at PayPal. And then they had gone out and done it again and again, in industry after industry, proving that the first time was not a fluke. As we reflect on their journey from a struggling internet payments company to one of the most influential networks in business history, we are reminded that great things often start small. That success requires not just intelligence but also teamwork, persistence, and a willingness to take risks. That the relationships we form and the cultures we create matter as much as the ideas we pursue. And that sometimes, the most important thing a company produces is not its product, but the people who go on to build the next generation of world-changing companies. The PayPal Mafia proved that one company, in one place, at one time, could generate ripples that spread across industries and around the world. Their story will be studied by entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders for generations to come, not just as a case study in success, but as an example of what human ingenuity, collaboration, and ambition can achieve when brought together in pursuit of a common goal. This was their story. This was the PayPal Mafia.